Ethan Cole had seen many strange things in his life as a scavenger. But nothing prepared him for the day he spent just $1 and found something that would change his life forever. The dusty spaceport market was busy that afternoon. Merchants shouting prices, the smell of burnt fuel mixing with the scent of alien spices, rows of old scrap, broken machines, and rusted space containers sat in the sun, waiting to be sold for parts. Ethan was there to find something cheap he could repair and sell for a little profit. His ship was in bad condition, and his wallet was almost empty. That's when his eyes caught a rusty old space container sitting alone near the edge of the yard. Its paint was peeling, the metal sides dented, and one of its hinges looked like it would break any moment. A big yellow sticker was stuck to its door, as is no warranty. The auctioneer, a bored-looking alien with 4 eyes and a long coat, stood beside it. "All right, lot number 34. He called out, "Old cargo container. No record of ownership, possibly damaged. Starting price. 1 credit. 1 credit, Ethan thought. That's $1. The crowd didn't even bother to look at it. Most buyers were after working engines, rare metals, or functioning tech. No one wanted to waste time on a useless hunk of rust. Ethan's hand went up without much thought. 1 credit. He called, "Any other bids?" The auctioneer asked lazily. Silence. Sold to the human. Ethan smiled a little. He didn't know why he had done it. Maybe he could strip it for metal or store tools in it. Either way, it was his now. He walked toward the container, his boots crunching against the gravel. The closer he got, the more he noticed something odd. A faint shimmer of blue light was leaking out from the edges of the door. It was barely visible in the sunlight, but it was there. Like the glow of a dying power cell, he frowned. Placing his hand on the cold metal, that was the second strange thing. Wasn't just cold from the weather, it was unnaturally cold, like it had been sitting in a freezer. A sharp shiver ran up his arm. "What's inside you?" Ethan muttered. He pulled out his portable scanner from his belt and held it against the door. The screen flickered, then spat out a reading. Biological matter detected. Temperature, -20 degrees Celsius. Vital signs, weak but present. Ethan froze. His heart started beating faster. Biological matter. Vital signs. Was there something alive in there? He leaned closer, trying to listen. At first, all he heard was the wind. Then thump. His head snapped up. His pulse raced. The sound was faint, but it was definitely from inside the container. Another thump, slower this time, followed by something Elsa's soft hum, like machinery working deep within the walls. He looked around. The market was still noisy. No one paying attention to him. Good. He didn't want anyone else to know what he had just found. Taking a deep breath, he grabbed the locking wheel on the container door and turned it. The metal creaked loudly, flakes of rust falling to the ground. The wheel finally gave way with a sharp click. The door was heavy, but he pulled it open and a burst of icy air rushed out, making him gasp. His breath fogged instantly, and a thin mist spilled onto the ground. Inside, dim blue light filled the space. Ethan's eyes widened, and for a moment he forgot to breathe. Against the far wall stood 6 tall, transparent pods, each one glowing faintly. Frost clinging to the glass. Inside each pod was a woman, not just any women, alien women. Their skin shimmered in unnatural but beautiful colors. Deep sapphire blue, emerald green, violet, crimson red, and silver. Their faces were delicate, with sharp cheekbones and features unlike anything human. Long hair floated gently inside the pods, like it was suspended in water. They were still, frozen in time, wearing simple cloth wraps that barely covered them. Their eyes closed, their bodies unmoving. Yet Ethan could see faint signs of breath, the slow rise and fall of their chests. He stepped closer, heart pounding. What in the stars? He whispered. On the wall beside the pods was a control panel. Its screen flashed red. Life support critical system failure in 0 hours, 12 minutes, and 46 seconds, 12 minutes. That was all. Whoever put them here had left them to die. Ethan's hands shook his mind. Raced if he left now to call for help. They might not survive, but if he tried to wake them himself, there was no telling what would happen. Another faint thump echoed from inside one of the pods. This time, it was a hand pressing weakly against the glass, fingers trembling, skin glittering under the light. Ethan swallowed hard. His instincts screamed at him these women needed help, and fast, from somewhere deep inside the market. He heard a faint mechanical whine, the sound of engines, and they were getting closer. He turned toward the open yard, heart beating faster than ever. Whoever was coming, were they here for him? Or for them? Ethan clenched his jaw, looked back at the pods, and knew one thing: whatever happened next, there was no turning back. Cliffhanger. A shadow falls across the doorway, and a deep, unfamiliar voice growls. Step away from the container. Human. Ethan froze, the cold air from the container mixing with the chill crawling up his spine. The shadow in the doorway shifted, and a figure stepped into view, a tall alien in black armor. Helmet hiding his face, the stranger's voice was deep and commanding. That cargo is not yours. Human, close the door and walk away. Ethan's mind raced. He didn't need to be a genius to know this man wasn't from the market. The armor, the taunt, screamed bounty hunter. And bounty hunters didn't care about laws. They cared about payment. Ethan tightened his grip on the container's door. They're alive, he said, voice low but firm. And I'm not leaving them here to die. The bounty hunter took a step forward, heavy boots crunching on the gravel. His gloved hand drifted toward the weapon on his hip. That's the point. They're supposed to die here. This is none of your concern. Ethan glanced at the control panel life support. Critical 941 blinking in angry red. His stomach nodded. He didn't have time for this. In one quick motion, he slammed the container door shut, twisting the locking wheel hard. The bounty hunter lunged forward. But Ethan was already sprinting around the side of the container, heart pounding. Security? Stop that, human. The alien barked into a communicator. Ethan didn't stop to look back. He darted between rows of stacked crates. Weaving through the narrow paths of the salvage yard, his breath came in sharp bursts, the icy air from the container. Still clinging to him, he knew the bounty hunter wouldn't give up. And if there was one, there would be more, slipping behind an old scrap hauler. Ethan pulled out his portable access tool, a small device capable of bypassing locks and control systems. He had used it countless times to salvage parts, but never for something this important. He peeked around the hauler. The bounty hunter was scanning the rows. 2 more armored figures now with him. They were spreading out, weapons drawn. Ethan's eyes darted back toward the container. He had to move fast, if he could get it on too. His ship, before they reached it, maybe he could save the women. He crept along the far side of the salvage yard until he was close enough to see the container again. No guards in sight. Just the faint blue glow seeping through the cracks in the door. He crouched low, unlocked the door again, and slipped inside. The sudden drop in temperature hit him hard. His breath fogged as he stepped toward the pods. The women inside were breathtaking. Even in their frozen state, one with sapphire skin had hair like flowing silver silk. Another with emerald green skin had eyes closed, now that he imagined could pierce straight into a person's soul. The red-skinned one had delicate facial markings that looked like they'd been painted by an artist. Ethan's gaze fell too. The one who had pressed her hand against the glass earlier. Her skin was pale lavender, her lips slightly parted as if she'd been trying to speak. The control panel beeped life support critical. 712. Ethan moved to the panel and began working quickly. His fingers danced over the interface, bypassing safety locks. The screen flashed warnings in a language he didn't understand, but the schematics were clear enough he could release them manually. Though it would trigger an alarm, he hesitated only for a second, then pressed the override. The pods hissed, releasing bursts of vapor. Frost cracked along the glass, and the blue glow began to fade. The women inside stirred, their fingers twitching, eyes fluttering open. Ethan felt his heart raced. He wasn't sure if they would be friendly, afraid, or hostile. He had woken strangers from death's door before, but never aliens who looked like this. The lavender-skinned woman's eyes opened fully, revealing a deep, glowing violet gaze. She looked right at him, confusion and fear mixing in her expression. Her lips moved, voice weak, but urgent. Speaking in a melodic language he couldn't understand, she pointed toward the door, repeating the word Vorka. Vorka. Ethan didn't know what Vorka meant, but from the look in her eyes, it wasn't good. The other women began to step out of their pods, moving slowly, their bodies stiff from the cold. They clung to each other for balance, shivering. Despite their alien physiology, from outside, Ethan heard the heavy thud of boots approaching. The bounty hunters had found them. He motioned urgently for the women to follow him. They hesitated, looking around the unfamiliar space. But the lavender-skinned one seemed to understand his urgency and gestured for the others to move. They reached the door just as a shadow appeared. The bounty hunter's helmeted head tilted slightly, weapon raised. Ethan didn't think. He swung the heavy locking wheel backward with all his strength. Smashing it into the bounty hunter's arm, the weapon clattered to the ground. Go! Ethan shouted, grabbing the nearest alien woman's hand and pulling her into the sunlight. They ran through the salvage yard, weaving between containers, Ethan leading the way. His ship wasn't far. But with bounty hunters behind them, it would feel like the longest run of his life. The women followed closely, their bare feet slapping against the dusty ground. The red-skinned one stumbled, and Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Blaster shots rang out, burning holes into the crates around them. The bounty hunters were close, too close. They rounded the last corner. And there it was, Yethan's old cargo ship. Paint faded, hull dented, but still flight-worthy. They scrambled up the ramp, Ethan slamming the control to close it behind them. The engines roared to life, and the ship lifted off just as the bounty hunters reached the landing pad. Through the cockpit window, Ethan saw their furious gestures as the ship soared into the sky. The lavender-skinned woman sat beside him, her breathing still shaky. She touched his arm and spoke softly. You? Help us. Ethan gave her a small nod. Yeah, I guess I do. Cliffhanger. Behind them, a dark shape emerged from the clouds of bounty hunter's ship. Already locking onto their trail, Ethan's ship rattled as it pushed through the lower atmosphere, the engines groaning under the sudden burst of speed. The bounty hunter's vessel loomed behind them, sleek and heavily armed, its black hull reflecting the faint glow of the planet's sun. The women sat in the small cargo bay, still shivering from cryo-sleep. Their alien beauty seemed almost unreal skin tones, shimmering like precious stones, hair falling in strange, gravity-defying waves, but their eyes were filled with uncertainty. And Ethan could feel the tension in the air. He kept glancing over his shoulder at the lavender-skinned woman. She seemed to be the leader among them, though her movements were still slow. She met his gaze, then pointed toward the control console near her pod. Life records, she said, in broken English. Ethan frowned, but understood. He switched the ship to autopilot for a moment and walked over. The panel was old, but still functional. When he tapped the screen, lines of alien script appeared. A quick translation showed prisoner ID codes, stasis durations, and capture dates. He blinked. "These records say you've been frozen for almost 2 years," he murmured. The women exchanged looks, some lowering their heads. One brushing a trembling hand over her face. The lavender-skinned woman stepped closer, her violet eyes intense. "Taken. Peace, talk. Warships come, we. No go home." Her voice cracked on the last word, before Ethan could respond. The ship's proximity alarm blared. The bounty hunter's craft had closed the distance. Red targeting beams sweeping over the hull. "Everyone, hold on to something." Ethan shouted. He dropped into the pilot's seat and threw the ship into a sharp dive. The stars blurred as the vessel skimmed the atmosphere before shooting out into open space. A bright flash filled the cockpit, one of the hunter's plasma. Bolts grazed the left wing, sparks rained down from the control panel. Ethan gritted his teeth. He's not letting this go. The emerald-skinned alien woman suddenly stepped forward, her bare feet silent against the metal floor. She placed her hands on the navigation console, tapping in rapid commands in her own language. Ethan's eyes widened as the star map shifted. "Plotting a course through a nearby asteroid field, you're a pilot." She gave a quick nod. "I fly before." "Captured," she said, her accent thick, but her focus steady. Ethan didn't have time to argue. He trusted her instincts and pushed the throttle to maximum. The ship roared forward, diving between tumbling chunks of rock. The bounty hunter followed, his smaller vessel weaving easily after them. In the cargo bay, the red-skinned alien held onto a railing, whispering something to the others. Her voice was low, but Ethan caught one word from the translation system, Vorka. He remembered the lavender-skinned one saying it earlier. He glanced back. "What's Vorka?" The red-skinned woman met his eyes, her expression, dark hunters. "Killers take. Sell." She made a slicing motion across her throat. Ethan's grip tightened on the controls. His suspicion was confirmed. The bounty hunters weren't working alone. They were part of something bigger. A sudden jolt shook the ship. The bounty hunter had scored another hit, alarms flashing across the console. Oxygen reserves in one of the side compartments dropped dangerously low. "Hang on." Ethan yelled. The emerald-skinned co-pilot guided him toward a narrow gap between two massive asteroids. The hunter ship followed but clipped a smaller rock, spinning slightly before recovering. Ethan used the moment, flipping a switch that vented superheated gas from the engine's auxiliary tanks. The burst created a blinding cloud in the hunter's path, forcing him to slow down. For the first time since takeoff, there was silence. Only the hum of the engines remained. The aliens relaxed slightly, but Ethan knew it wouldn't last. He stood, walking back to the cargo bay. "They're not going to stop. You need to tell me why they want you so badly." The lavender-skinned woman exchanged a look with the others, then stepped forward. "We. Not same. World," she said slowly, pointing at each woman in turn. "Each. From leader's family, taken. To stop, peace." Ethan's stomach sank. "So you're all important?" She nodded. "If we die." War. Ethan rubbed a hand over his face. The weight of the situation was sinking enough. He didn't keep them safe. The galaxy could fall into chaos. A faint beep from the navigation console caught his attention. The emerald-skinned woman looked at the screen, then at Ethan. They. Coming back, his heart sank. He leaned over the console. The bounty hunter's ship had already cleared the gas cloud and was moving toward them again. The lavender-skinned woman touched his arm, her voice soft but urgent. "Human. You save. Us. We help you." Ethan didn't know what kind of help they could give him, but he could see the sincerity in her eyes. He gave a short nod. "Then, let's make sure none of us get caught." Cliffhanger. The ship's scanner suddenly detected 2 more hunter vessels emerging from hyperspace directly ahead. The moment the scanner showed 2 more hunter ships ahead, Ethan felt the walls closing in, the small cockpit filled with the faint hum of the engines. But underneath, the tension was sharp and heavy. The emerald-skinned alien woman glanced at him, her glowing eyes betraying no panic. Only calculation, they. "Blockway," she said simply. Ethan's jaw tightened. He could see the 3 hunter ships on the radar, 2 ahead forming a blockade. One still pursuing from behind, the enemy had boxed them in perfectly. The women in the cargo bay stood close, together, holding on to whatever they could. Their bare feet and thin wraps made them look fragile, but their expressions were anything but watchful. Waiting, the lavender-skinned woman stepped forward. Steadying herself against the cockpit doorway, "No, go through them," she said, then pointed downward on the holographic map. "Go." Here, Ethan looked at the coordinates. His stomach nodded. That's the inner salvage ring. It was an abandoned orbital scrap field, thousands of shattered ships drifting in a slow, endless spin, going in and out of the planet's shadow. It was so cluttered and dangerous that no sane pilot would risk navigating through it at speed. Better chance than them, she added, nodding toward the hunters. Ethan glanced at the emerald-skinned woman. She gave the smallest nod, confirming the plan. He flicked the controls, redirecting the ship toward the salvage ring. The engines roared, and the sudden course change made the hull groan. Behind them, the pursuing bounty hunter adjusted course immediately. But the 2 in front hesitated, unsure whether to follow into the wreckage. As the salvage ring loomed larger in the viewport, Ethan's eyes narrowed. The field was massive, with jagged hulls spinning slowly, broken weapons still protruding from the skeletons of warships. Shadows swallowed some sections entirely, while others gleamed with reflected sunlight. "This is going to be tight," he muttered. The emerald-skinned woman took a seat beside him, her fingers already inputting micro-adjustments to their trajectory. Left drift, low speed, on entry. She said, "Keep nose up." Ethan obeyed. The ship slipped between 2 rusted cruisers, their broken antennas scraping past the hull with an awful metallic groan. Inside the cargo bay, the women huddled close, gripping handrails. Their eyes darted between the jagged shadows outside. The pursuing bounty hunter followed without hesitation, weaving through the debris with impressive skill, his ships smaller. Frame let him close the gap. A flicker on the radar showed he was charging weapons. Ethan grit his teeth. They're going to fire. The emerald-skinned woman tapped a sequence into the navigation system. Turn. Here, Ethan yanked the controls. The ship spun sharply, sliding between the ribs of a broken battleship. Plasma fire roared past where they had been seconds before, burning a hole straight through the hull of a derelict freighter. For a brief moment, the hunter's ship vanished from view. Blocked by wreckage, Ethan used the time to dive deeper into the salvage ring. The path ahead narrowed to a tunnel formed by 2 colliding ship carcasses, their twisted metal barely giving enough room to squeeze through. "You sure about this?" Ethan asked under his breath. "No, sure," the emerald-skinned woman replied, her mouth quirking in something that might have been a smile. They scraped through the tunnel, sparks showering the sides of the ship. But they made it out intact. The hunter reappeared seconds later, forcing his way through as well. His shields flickered from the impact. But he didn't slow down. Ethan knew he couldn't outmaneuver them forever. He needed a distraction, something that would slow them down without destroying his own ship. His eyes scanned the field, then stopped on a cluster of fuel pods drifting together. Their old pressure seals, likely unstable, if he could time it right. He took a sharp turn toward the pods, the emerald-skinned co-pilot catching on instantly. She toggled the rear targeting system and locked onto the pods just as they passed them. Ethan gave the order. Fire! A burst of energy struck one of the pods. The explosion was instant and violent, flames blooming in the cold void. The shockwave ripped through the salvage ring, sending smaller wreckage spinning in every direction. The pursuing hunter's ship swerved hard to avoid the debris. But one spinning chunk of plating clipped his wing, sending him spiraling for a moment before he regained control. By then, Ethan's ship was already far ahead, weaving deeper into the wreckage inside the cargo bay. The women looked at him differently, now less like a stranger, more like someone they could trust. The red-skinned one placed a hand over her heart and murmured something softly. The translation device caught a single word: protector. Ethan didn't have time to respond. The scanners suddenly lit up again. The two hunter ships that had stayed outside the salvage ring were now moving to intercept at the far exit. The lavender-skinned woman leaned forward, her violet eyes fixed on the approaching danger. "We no stop," she said. "We run." Always, Ethan's hands tightened on the controls. Not this time. Cliffhanger? Ahead. Blocking the only way out, a massive, unmarked warship slowly turned to face them, its weapons already powering up. The massive warship loomed ahead. Its hull, a dark wall of steel and shadow, stretching across the only clear exit from the salvage ring. Rows of weapon turrets tracked Ethan's ship with precise mechanical movements. Their faint hum told him they were charging. Ready to fire? Ethan's jaw tightened. His old freighter wasn't built for fights like this, was an aging cargo hauler with patched armor and barely functional shields. One good hit from the warship's main guns and they'd be space dust. The emerald-skinned woman in the co-pilot's seat scanned the readings. Weapon power. "Hi, we cannot take hit," she said in her careful, broken English behind them. The lone bounty hunter, still chasing through the salvage ring, fired another burst. The shot grazed their right thruster, making the ship shudder. Alarms wailed. Through the cockpit, Ethan glanced at the navigation display. 3 enemy ships now boxed them in. 2 smaller bounty craft closing from behind, and the massive warship sealing the front. "We're trapped," he muttered. The lavender-skinned woman stepped into the cockpit, her breath still uneven from the earlier escape. "You, smart pilot," she said. "You find way." Ethan stared at the warship's rotating guns. Then at the debris field around them, an idea began to form, a dangerous one. But it might be their only chance. If we can get close enough to that warship, we might be able to blind their targeting systems, he said. The emerald-skinned woman's eyes narrowed. Too close. They kill us too far, and they still kill us. Ethan shot back. His fingers moved quickly across the console, shifting power from the ship's lights and secondary systems into the forward shields. The red-skinned woman appeared in the doorway, her voice low but urgent. "Why you help? You know us?" Ethan didn't look at her. "Because I don't walk away from people who need saving without warning." He pushed the throttle forward. The ship lunged toward the warship at full speed. The emerald-skinned woman grabbed the co-pilot controls, working with him to dodge the bursts of enemy fire. Bolts of plasma streaked past them, lighting up the dark void. The smaller bounty ships behind them followed aggressively, weaving between wreckage to keep up. One shot hit the tail, making the hull groan in protest. The temperature in the engine room spiked. But Ethan didn't slow. "Closer," he told the co-pilot. His eyes locked on the warship's main sensor cluster, a domed structure near the lower starboard side. If they could overload it, the massive ship would be temporarily blind. They closed the distance. The warship's turret spun faster, trying to track them as the freighter zigzagged. "Now!" Ethan shouted. The emerald-skinned woman fired a concentrated EMP pulse from the ship's underbelly cannons. The burst of electromagnetic energy hit the sensor dome directly, making the warship's lights flicker. Its gunfire slowed, then paused. Entirely for a few precious seconds, Ethan didn't waste the moment. He dove the ship downward, skimming just under the warship's hull, scraping so close they could see the welding seams in the plating. The smaller bounty ships behind them tried to follow, but one clipped a jutting antenna and spun out of control, slamming into the wreckage. The other hunter kept up. Firing wildly, his shots missed Ethan's ship but tore through chunks of debris, sending dangerous shrapnel spinning through space. One shard hit the side of their hull, causing another alarm to scream. Almost there. Ethan called. The end of the salvage ring was in sight now. The blackness of open space beyond. But the warship systems were already recovering, turrets powering back online. The emerald-skinned co-pilot shouted, "They fire." Massive. Blast from the warships forward, guns roared past them, barely missing. The shockwave rocked the freighter, throwing some of the alien women to the floor in the cargo bay. Ethan's hands were steady on the controls. "Hold on." He yelled. The freighter burst free of the salvage ring, slipping into open space. But their escape wasn't clean. The warship immediately deployed smaller interceptor crafts to pursue. The lone surviving bounty hunter also followed, now joined by 3 fresh enemy ships. "They're not giving up," Ethan muttered, sweat dripping down his neck. The lavender-skinned woman steadied herself in the cockpit doorway. "They never give up," she said, voice heavy, "until we die." Or they, Ethan exhaled sharply. "Then it's time to make sure it's them." The emerald-skinned woman gave him a sidelong glance, as if gauging his resolve. Then she leaned closer and tapped a location on the star map. "Here," she said. "Hidden storm. They not follow." Ethan frowned. "A storm?" "Plasma storm," she explained. "Kill shields. But safe. If you know way." It was insane. Navigating a plasma storm could fry every electrical system on the ship. But it also might be the only way to shake the hunters. The pursuing ships closed in fast, weapons primed. The warship was turning to follow. Ethan made his decision. Strap in. We're heading into the storm. Cliffhanger ahead. The black emptiness of space rippled with flashes of blinding blue lightning and endless, raging sea of plasma, waiting to swallow them whole. The plasma storm loomed ahead like a living beast. Great rivers of glowing blue lightning snaked through the black void, arcing between invisible walls of energy. Waves of ionized gas pulsed and twisted, painting the darkness with shifting light. Every pilot in the galaxy knew this was no ordinary storm. It was a graveyard for ships that didn't know how to move with its rhythm. Ethan's freighter trembled as it approached the edge. The instruments screamed warnings, static crawling across every screen. "Once we go in, we lose shields and long range comes," he muttered. "If anything goes wrong, no one will hear us call for help." The emerald-skinned woman in the co-pilot seat didn't flinch. Her hands moved over the controls with precision. "I know path," she said. "My people pass here many times. Hunters not follow. Too dangerous for them." Ethan's eyes flicked to the rear display. The pursuing ships had slowed, but they hadn't stopped. The warship lingered at a distance, unwilling to risk the storm. But 3 smaller hunter craft kept their course. "They're either brave or stupid," Ethan said. "Let's make them regret it." The lavender-skinned woman appeared in the doorway. One hand braced on the frame as the ship shook. "We help," she said simply. Then she spoke quickly in her language to the others. In the cargo bay, and they moved to action. The sapphire-skinned one went to the engineering station, her long fingers flying across the alien console as if it were part of her own body. The red-skinned one started stripping wires from unused panels, while the silver-skinned woman took a seat at the rear gun controls. Checking ammunition levels didn't. "Think I'd get a full crew out of this," Ethan muttered with a faint grin. But there was no time to say more. The freighter crossed the storm's invisible boundary. It was like stepping into another world. The darkness dissolved into blinding white flashes, each burst of light tearing across the sky with a soundless roar. The ship's shields collapsed instantly, the energy from the storm shorting them out. In a shower of sparks, Ethan's teeth clenched as the hull began absorbing the heat and static charge directly. Follow lightning's tail, the emerald-skinned woman instructed. Do not fight current. Let it move us. Ethan's hands were steady on the yoke. Every instinct told him to dodge the arcs of lightning, but he forced himself to follow. Her guidance, steering into the slow-moving eddies of glowing plasma. The freighter drifted almost like a leaf on water, weaving between streaks of deadly light behind them. The three pursuing hunter craft entered the storm at full speed, ignoring caution. Their shields failed instantly, and one was struck head-on by a blinding arc. The ship spun out of control, venting fire before vanishing in a silent explosion. The lavender-skinned woman gripped Ethan's shoulder. One gone, she said, voice calm but fierce. The other two? Hunters stayed close, weaving through the storm with surprising skill. Plasma bursts lit their dark hulls in ghostly blue. Their weapons glowed. But the storm's interference made their targeting unstable. Shots veered off course. Scattering harmlessly into the void, Ethan glanced at the emerald-skinned woman. We can't run forever. How do we lose them completely? She tapped a section of the storm map on the console there, she said. Dead core, no lightning inside. But hard to find. Hunters will not risk blind entry. Then we make it before they do, Ethan said. Pushing the throttle, the freighter surged forward, riding a wave of electrical discharge that carried them like a tide. The sapphire-skinned engineer shouted from the back, engine heat high. The translation device caught her meaning perfectly. Ethan knew one wrong move and the overheated systems could shut them down mid-flight. The second hunter ship moved to flank them, trying to cut them off from the core, the silver-skinned gunner. In the back locked onto it and fired. The shot struck its wing, sending it spinning into a wall of plasma. The storm devoured it instantly in a flash of white light. Only one hunter remained. It pushed harder, ignoring the risk. Staying just far enough to avoid another hit from the freighter's guns, Ethan could see the faint glow of the dead core. Ahead, a circular patch of darkness within the storm. Hold steady, the emerald-skinned woman said, her voice steady despite the chaos. When I say now, dive. They skimmed past a jagged arc of lightning that licked the hull, sending the lights flickering. The smell of ozone filled the air. Now, she shouted Ethan through the freighter into a sharp, downward dive. The last hunter overshot them, unable to correct in time, and flew straight into a cascade of lightning that ripped across its hull. Its engines burst in a blinding flare, and it was gone. The freighter slid into the dead core. The sudden silence almost deafening after the storm's chaos. No lightning here, just a dark, calm void surrounded by walls of glowing blue. Ethan let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. In the cargo bay, the alien women exchanged glances, relief and disbelief mixing in their eyes. The lavender-skinned woman stepped closer, her gaze fixed on him. You save us again, she said quietly. Why? Ethan shrugged. Because someone has to. She tilted her head, studying him like she was seeing something unfamiliar. You? Different from others. Before he could respond, the emerald-skinned co-pilot pointed at the nav console. We know safe yet. Storm path closing. If we stay, we die. Cliffhanger. Outside the dead core, a massive, unknown silhouette drifted into view. Its dark hull, unmarked, but its shape unmistakably alien, and waiting. The silhouette outside the dead core moved with slow, deliberate grace. Its hull was a deep matte black that absorbed the surrounding blue light of the plasma storm, making it seem like a shadow pulled from the void itself. The ship was massive, larger than Ethan's freighter by dozens of times, its edges lined with strange, flowing patterns that pulsed faintly, almost like veins carrying light instead of blood. The alien women in the cargo bay froze the moment they saw it through the viewing port. The lavender-skinned leader whispered something in her language, and the others murmured in awe. The translation device picked up her words. Home. Ethan turned in his seat. Home. That thing is yours." She nodded slowly, her eyes still locked on the great vessel, royal ship. "Our people search for us." Long time, her voice cracked slightly, as if holding back emotion. The emerald-skinned co-pilot's gaze softened. "They find us." In Storm, that means they never stopped. Ethan glanced back at the towering vessel outside. Then why is it just sitting there? Why isn't it moving closer? The sapphire-skinned engineer explained. "Storm. Dangerous, only way in. It's safe path." She motioned toward the emerald-skinned woman. "She know it." The comm panel crackled suddenly with a voice unlike any Ethan had heard before, deep, resonant, and almost musical. It spoke in the alien tongue, but the translation came through quickly. "Royal envoys, we have located you. Identify the vessel and pilot." The lavender-skinned leader stepped into the cockpit and placed a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. "He saved us," she said firmly into the comm. Her voice grew stronger. "He is friend to our worlds. Without him, we are dead." There was a pause on the other end. Then the voice replied, "Bring him with you. The council will wish to meet this human." Ethan raised his hand slightly. No offense, but I'm not exactly dressed for a royal audience." The lavender-skinned woman's lips curved into the smallest smile. "You dress." "Heart," she said, tapping her chest gently. The emerald-skinned co-pilot guided the freighter toward the alien vessel, following her people's hidden safe route through the shifting walls of plasma. The warship's massive docking bay opened like the jaws of some ancient beast, revealing a warm, golden glow within as they passed through the shield barrier. Ethan's ship was scanned by beams of soft light. The alien women relaxed, their postures loosening for the first time since he'd met them. When they landed, the ramp lowered slowly. A line of tall, regal-looking aliens stood waiting, dressed in flowing garments that shimmered like starlight. Their features shared the same alien beauty as the women Ethan had rescued. Elegant bone structure, luminous eyes and skin that caught the light like gemstones. The lavender-skinned leader walked down the ramp first, her head held high. She spoke briefly to the awaiting royals before turning back to Ethan. "Come," she said, extending her hand. Ethan hesitated, but the way she looked at him left no room for refusal. He followed her into the grand docking hall, its floor polished to a mirror-like shine, massive windows showing the swirling storm outside. One of the royals stepped forward. "Human," he said, in accented English, "you have done what no other dared. You have returned to us our peace envoys. For this, you have our gratitude." Ethan shrugged awkwardly. "I just saw people who needed help. That's all." The royal inclined his head. "To you, perhaps. But to us, it is everything." A ceremony began quickly, strange symbols of light forming in the air above Ethan. Each of the rescued women placed a hand over their hearts and bowed their heads to him. The lavender-skinned leader stepped forward last, holding a small silver pendant shaped like a spiral star. She pressed it into his palm. "This bond," she said softly, "means you are always welcome." Ethan looked down at the pendant, the metal warm from her touch. "Thank you," he said quietly. When the ceremony ended, the royals offered him a position unhonored guest, a protector of their worlds, but Ethan knew his place wasn't here. He had a small ship, a galaxy to roam, and other people out there who might need saving. He shook his head gently. "I'm honored, really, but I'm just a pilot. That's what I'll keep being." The lavender-skinned woman's eyes softened. "Then, I hope stars bring you back." As he boarded his freighter again, the alien women stood together at the edge of the docking bay, watching the ramp closed slowly, and Ethan lifted off, passing back through the storm's calm center. The alien vessel faded from view behind him, swallowed once more by the swirling plasma. He sat in the pilot seat, the silver pendant dangling from the dashboard. His $1 purchase had turned into the greatest rescue of his life. Out in the endless dark, the stars seemed just a little brighter. And somewhere deep down, he knew this wasn't goodbye, just the end of the first chapter. Final hook. Far away, aboard the alien royal ship, the lavender-skinned woman star.